5th.
I can hear you just fine.
Thank you. Join me for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll call the regular meeting of the Herington City Commission for August 6th, 2024 to order. Do you have any public forum? No public forum. We'll move on to approval of the regular commission meeting minutes from July 16th and the minutes from the special meeting of July 24th, 2024. We have a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion for approval of those meetings.
And I don't know if he has to, but maybe Commissioner Stats might abstain, consider abstaining, since he wasn't a commissioner for those meetings.
I'll second the motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Ms. Lawrence?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Stark?
Aye.
Commissioner Stats?
Abstain.
Mayor Garris?
Aye. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. And just for public consumption, we will have 7 ayes an announcement regarding the August 20th budget hearing. We have a motion for approval.
So moved. Go ahead.
So moved.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of the agenda with the addition of 7I. Any discussion? Ms. Lawrence?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarf?
Aye.
Commissioner Stats?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Move on to the consent agenda. We have a motion for approval of the consent agenda. I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
So motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Ms. Lawrence?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarf?
Aye.
Commissioner Stats?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. 7I, I just want to make sure that the public is aware that on August 20th, 2024 at 6 o'clock, there is a public hearing or soon thereafter regarding the 2025 city budget. So copies should be available if you want to review by the city clerk. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. No other announcements or proclamations. Let's receive a report and consider financing options from KMEA Generator. So, gentlemen?
Yes, hello. My name is Tom Saida, and I'm the Director of Operations at KMEA, and this is Tyson McGreer. Just to kind of recap on the folks that are online here, we have Jerry Beaker, who's the Managing Director of Engineering at KMEA, Paul Malberg, who is our General Manager, and it looks like we have Matthew from Piper Sandler, who's going to be talking a little bit about some of the financial proposals a little bit later. So with that, I have put together a very, very short presentation which basically describes the proposals that we have and where we're setting. So let's see here from the beginning. There it is. So just to kind of try to recap, back September 13th of last year, we gave you a presentation showing what we estimated the cost of the work that we were proposing to cost, or what the cost would be. In that proposal, I showed you a proposal that included additionally the financing of the upgrade of your existing unit embedded within it. So those numbers are not quite appropriate because you did not finance that $400,000 worth of work. You ended up self-funding it on your own. So I've taken that same exact estimate, subtracted out that money, and built the exact same with the exact same parameters. I came up with a new estimate based on what we presented September 13th of last year. With that estimate, I would have had an adjusted forecasted cost of around $308,000 is what the new cost would have been. With a threshold cost of $350,000, considerably less than the $347,407, which included the financing that we just talked about that you knew. So that is kind of a representation of what the last proposal was that we gave you. The proposals, and I know this is hard for folks back behind me to see, and you all have a copy of it in front of you also. These are the two proposals that we received on your financing. One's from Flagler and one's from, I'm going to have to get close so I can see it, NBH offer. And they have, one's at 4.69% and one is 5.57%. You kind of see $255,000 and $280,000 annually for each of them. Additionally, there's some O&M. There's about $25,000 worth of O&M. So if you look at the $255,000 plus $25,000 of O&M, that's around $280. The estimate that we had given you was $307. So, or $305, I'm sorry. So what I'm here to tell you is things came in very well. They came in at or below estimate, actually below estimate. Both proposals are below estimates that we're giving you. And both proposals are slightly different. And a little bit later, I'm going to defer to Matthew at Piper Sandler to describe those two proposals to you, because I think he could do a much better job describing them to you than I can. when we built those numbers, those original estimates that I given you back on September of 23, it showed that you were going to be paying a slight premium for adding the new generation and for building your existing one. So you can see that slight premium. It kind of shows up there right below. It wasn't a substantial premium. It was in the $40,000 to $60,000 range a year. If you look at the current proposals that we're going to be showing you today, they both show that you're going to show, or I'm sorry, the first one, the Flagstar one, shows that it will be below those estimates, below your status quo cost. So, all in all, it was a good investment to move forward with building this generation, because it will be below what your status quo cost would have been, not by a substantial amount, but every penny counts. So we're looking about, if you kind of go to 2029 as kind of your status quo place, about $8,000 better than your status quo. And even the other offer really is about $17,000 more for that year, a little bit less previous year, because you have things rolling in and out. But all in all, I was very pleased with these numbers. They came in below our estimated costs, and depending on which one you choose, it will be out of below your status quo offer. So that is really all I have for that presentation. If you have any questions about that, before I defer to Matthew at Piper.
What's the estimation that with, for instance, the Flagstar offer, that it will no longer be under the status quo? Is it going to change in 2030 based off of the way these are looking, or?
Well, it looks to me like that the Flagstar one.
Mm-hmm.
So the Flagstar would remain being around $8,000.
Okay.
Going forward. So those would be, when I said status quo numbers, so I stopped it at 2029 because that's when kind of your other contracts kind of roll in and out, and that's when you get to a point of those numbers should be your status quo numbers.
Okay.
Forward. Now, of course, there's going to be, your status quo has a variable in what's the price of paper capacity in the market, which will change going forward, but the estimates I have would be that it would remain about the same at that point. So
Okay.
I would say it would still be about $8,000.
All right.
And then after Matthew talks, I think Tyson's going to maybe talk a little bit about next steps for you and what you need, what decisions you need to make on this proposal. Matthew, are you on the line?
I am, yeah. Can you all hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, Matt Courtney from Piper Sandler, and thanks for going over all that, Tyson. So I just wanted to go over the two offers here, and maybe, Tyson, could you put the, I think it's the second or third slide back on the screen, the summary of proposals?
Yep.
Thank you.
Oh, did you close out of it, Tom? 1 second here, Matt, sorry. That one there, Matt?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I guess kind of the big picture summary here is we received two term sheets that are a little bit different than each other. So maybe I'll start with the NBH, which is the right side there. And NBH Bank, they're a regional bank based out of Colorado. However, they're the parent company of Bank Midwest, so they do have locations in Kansas as well. So I guess I would summarize the NBH offer as a higher rate than the Flagstar offer, and it's the rate is it was 5.57% as of the day that they sent in their proposal. It has actually moved a little lower, which I'll explain a little bit later. But their offer was basically an indexed rate of a 10-year market interest rate plus 1.75%. And when they offered, it was a 5.57, and again has gone down a little bit since then. NVH offer is it's a 20-year fixed rate, and then a small balloon in year 20 that would go that would need to be refinanced for the final 3 years of the term of this agreement. And the annual payment, again, just debt service only, would be about $280,000 per year, and you would be able to refinance that starting in year 10. So if market interest rates were to go down, between now and year 10 or any time thereafter, the city would have the potential to refinance for savings or for any other reason you needed to refinance. Now, the Flagstar offer I'd summarize as a lower rate. However, it does have some risk, and the reason it has that risk is Flagstar was not willing to go beyond year 10. So the way that which would be 2034. So kind of the way that their offer was structured was basically amortized as if it were a 23-year financing, but with a bullet in the 10th year, or a balloon payment in the 10th year, that the city and KMEA would need to refinance sometime between year 5, so 2029, when these bonds would become callable, and year 10, when you would have that balloon payment. So it's a lower rate, but there is risk that the city would need to refinance this on or before year 10. And it's impossible for anyone to predict what interest rates will be, between year 5 and year 10. So,
Excuse me.
like I said, a little bit riskier of an offer than the NVH offer, but also at a much lower interest rate. So that's kind of the high overview summary, and I'm happy to take any questions you guys might have about the two offers.
I think Commissioner Naylor's got a question for you.
Yes, so on the Flagstar, with the 10-year bullet, it's only guaranteed at 4.69 till year 10, and then we have to find other financing, or they will finance for the other 13 years. That will come up with a new interest rate.
Sure. So the city would need to basically go out and try to find refinancing. If Flagstar would consider it at that time, but they haven't guaranteed that they would refinance it at that time. So the city would need to plan on entering the market again to execute that refinancing.
Matt, this is Jerry. That'd be the city and KMEA.
Yes, excuse me, the city and KMEA.
Anything else?
Not at this time.
Questions?
I don't have any questions.
All right. I don't think there's any more questions on that so far. What?
Okay, yeah, and I'll stick around in case, if any questions do come up throughout the discussion on this. So happy to answer anything as it comes up.
Okay.
Hey, Jerry, did you want to talk a little bit or maybe give some perspective on these proposals?
Sure. I think the bottom line is we have to choose one or the other of these proposals. If you don't like the risk with the Flagstar, then you have the NVH offer. So leaving tonight, we need to move forward with one of these two offers. So we're looking for some action on that, and then we will be looking for a resolution and an addendum to be signed. So if that makes sense. If not, just throw some questions at us.
Thanks, Jerry. Hey, this is Mitch Walter with Gilmore & Bell. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, hey, as Jerry mentioned, the resolution, the addendum, the reason that you have those two items before you, those go towards the capacity, generation capacity agreement that the city entered into with KMEA. There's a clause in that contract that if the bonds aren't delivered prior to September 1, 2024, then that contract is cancelable. We anticipate that we would make that September 1, 2024 date that's in there. But in the event that we don't, we wanted to be able to extend that deadline until November 1st, 2024, just in case something came up and it was necessary to extend the closing of the bond issue that we're discussing right now. The other item in that is that in that agreement, it provides that the term of the bond should be not less than 20 years or as otherwise agreed to by the city. And so the purpose of that resolution would be to agree to a term of the bonds for less than 20 years if advisable. So that's what that resolution kind of accomplishes, those two things, and documents that the city is amenable to moving in that direction.
So I think from staff's perspective, we're certainly comfortable with either. My interpretation is that KMEA's, I guess, willing to take the higher risk on the Flagstar offer. So, we wouldn't be alone. We'd be with them on that, and we'd save quite a bit of interest on the front end of this, whereas there is a little bit of risk on the back end with the NBH offer. So I guess staff is fine with either, but I guess I would have to recommend the lower rate and take a little bit of risk. But
I'm not trying to, can I ask you a question of Matthew? Because hey, Matthew,
Yes.
Both offers are out there. My understanding is the bank, the one offer is set to an index.
Yeah, and actually, I do want to back up. So
5.5%, 5.7%. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we included the rates as of when the proposals came in. However, those came in about a week and a half, between a week and a half and 2 weeks ago now, and over the past 3 or 4 business days, rates have actually come down quite a bit. So that both the index rate and Flagstar has offered to lower their rate as well. So those would both be lower as of today. So Flagstar has actually offered to lower theirs down to 4.30. So again, a pretty significant move. And NBH, where their index rate would be today, is about 5.20. But again, NBH's could potentially move between now and next week when we get 2 weeks from closing, and that rate would be locked. So yes, there's both offers right now would actually be lower annual payments than we're showing here. But we'd already produced these materials and everything and didn't have a chance to update them before tonight's meeting.
So Matthew, is the 4.3 locked at this point if we close in a week, and the 5.57, which is 5.2 or whatever it is not locked until the day we close? Is that what I heard you say?
Close. So the Flagstar one is 4.30 so long as we close before September 6th.
Okay.
So that one would not move from 4.30. NBH, their offer would still potentially move with the market, which could be up, could be down, up until 2 weeks prior to close. And we would be planning to close the last week of August. So that rate would be locked sometime next week for NBH, at which point it would not move.
Does that 5.2 on NBH include the plus 1.75%, or is that the 1.575? Is that going to be an additional on top of that?
The 1.75 is part of that. Part of the 5.2. So the index that they work off of is 3.45 right now. So 3.45 plus 1.75 is where the 5.2 comes from.
Okay.
So just to be clear, both of that information would lower further the
Right.
estimates that I had given you earlier.
And neither one of these, the first payment wouldn't be until December 1st of 2027. Is that?
Yeah, all the interest payments that mature before then would be capitalized into and paid by the bond issuance. So the first payments that the city would make would be in 2027.
Any other questions or comments?
Is it usual when we refinance at the 10-year that the interest rates will be at least similar?
It's really hard to say, because it really depends on what the market interest rate environment is at that time.
And this is Mitch again. Just to add a little bit of color to that, Matt's absolutely right that it's basically impossible to know what the interest rate market is going to be like when it comes time to refinance. Just for a little bit of additional consideration, the Flagstar offer is callable any time between years 5 and 10. So if at any time the market dips down and a refinancing looks attractive, anytime after year 5 before year 10, that could be accomplished, and that the city and KMEA could enter the market to refinance at that point in time. And then on the NBH side, with a little bit higher interest rate, but that is callable anytime after the 10 years. So if the interest rate climate is favorable in year 12, 13, 11, then the city and KMEA would always have the option to refinance that as well. So just because you can refinance doesn't mean you have to until the very end of both of these offers when you would have to refinance. But there would be some time in between the optional refinance date and the mandatory refinance date where you could hunt a good interest rate climate to get your refinancing done, hopefully just once and permanently.
Okay. Anything else? Anything?
I'm kind of a late comer to it.
So this is refinancing, it's not refinancing our rebuild. It's just refinancing the new generator.
That KMEA is comfortable with.
Right.
The
Does-
offer, so.
I'll put Jerry and Tom on the spot a little bit maybe. Does KMEA have a firm recommendation one way or the other?
Jerry?
Tom. Actually, no, and I think I might defer to Paul on that. There is a little bit of uncomfortableness with the 10-year put on Flagstar. I think that makes us a little bit uneasy, but I think it's doable. Like Mitch said, we got 5 years, and we would be aggressively looking at that interest rate after year 5 and watching it closely and bringing it to you. When we were at or below, when it starts looking reasonable. Paul, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, Jerry, I think you kind of captured it. One of my concerns was in, years 5 through 10, if something changes where, maybe the market isn't looking to refinance a used generator that'd be 5 to 10 years old. Maybe Mitch can weigh in, the backstop to, if we go to the market and we don't find anything, the backstop would be, the city to go issue GO bonds to cover it. The capacity agreement, this unit's yours. We're kind of a financing mechanism for you. Ultimately, in year 10, if you do the Flagstar offer, there's a balloon payment, and ultimately that balloon payment is the responsibility of the city. Although KMEA would go out and try to do the financing to finance it for the remaining 10 years. But that's the uneasiness. But I think there's a backstop there if the markets aren't favorable to us.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Paul. I don't really have anything to add to that. That if for whatever reason there is no market for a lease purchase structure on the refinancing, then the natural place to look would be the city's general obligation credit, which is not tied to the specific asset, but rather the taxing power of the city. Although the city could certainly use electric system revenues or whatever source of revenues are available to make that payment. But that's kind of the worst case scenario, is that the city would have to refinance on a GO basis, at the mandatory put date on the Flagstar side.
And Mitch, that would be kind of an abnormal thing with the current atmosphere, correct?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. You never say never, but that would be surprising just based on history. There's typically a market for these types of deals. Knock on wood.
The only thing that I would add overall is the fact that the cool part is you could choose either one, and you're going to be below what we estimate your status quo prices to be. So I think you're in a good spot to choose either one of these. So that's as good as my crystal ball gets.
Brad, we just issued some general obligation bonds for the water treatment plant. And because that's a utility and this is another utility, it doesn't go against our limit for the general obligations, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct, since it's for the extension of the utility.
We have any other questions or anything else regarding the reports and the considerations?
I'm still leaning towards the Flagstar offer with a lower interest rate. Should save the city 10 years.
I mean, they're right. It creates a good backstop, and we've got between years 5 and 10 to look for an option. Anything else before we move on for consideration of an approval of a resolution? Okay, we'll move on to item 9, is authorize resolution for certain actions relating to the issuance of power project revenue bonds with KMEA. And Brad, just before we go on, just the resolution does not require in the motion to authorize the mayor's signature. Okay.
Still on there. Do I need to do all 3 bullet points? I'll make a motion for the resolution in the next sequential order to finance the total principal amount of the bonds not to exceed $4.5 million. A true interest rate cost of the bonds shall not exceed 6.25% per annum, and the true bond shall not be less than 20 years with free Flagstar. And authorize the mayor's signature.
Those are the parameters that were in the capacity agreement. I think if the city's wanting to move in the Flagstar motion, this resolution allows for a financing term of less than 20 years, as referenced by that balloon payment. And if that's the city's direction to move with the Flagstar offer, then this resolution would evidence the city's acceptance of that
The 4.3.
financing term that Flagstar offered.
Okay.
Is that the intent of the city?
Yes.
Is that the intent of your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this resolution would accomplish that and would allow the city to move forward, KMEA to move forward on either offer, but specifically, from listening to the meeting, my understanding was it's Flagstar, so we would move forward with Flagstar based on this meeting.
Okay. Regarding the motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
So a motion and a second to authorize the resolution in the next sequential order. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Lawrence?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarr?
Aye.
Commissioner Stats?
Aye.
Mayor Garris?
Aye. Anything else before we move on to agenda item 10? Okay, we'll move on. Let's consider an addendum number 1 to the generating capacity and power sales contract. This one will also require, as presented, authorization for the mayor's signature. What date was that? What date do we have that agreement?
Yeah, this is Mitch again. The agreement provides for a September 1st, 2024 issuance date or deadline for the issuance of the bonds. We anticipate still being able to meet that, but just to give ourselves a little bit of room for whatever reason, if it became necessary, that date's being extended to November 1st, 2024. Again, don't anticipate that we would need that, but don't want to come up against a technical or a glitch in the language of the capacity purchase agreement, since it's the agreement that really underpins the whole credit for the bond issue.
Okay.
I'll let you do it.
I'll make a motion to approve addendum number 1 to the generating capacity and power sales contract between the Kansas Municipal Energy Agency and the City of Herington, amending the date from September 1st to November 1st of 2024, authorizing a total principal amount of the bonds not to exceed $4.5 million, true interest, cost of the bonds not to exceed 6.25 per annum, and the term of the bonds not to be less than 20 years or as otherwise agreed in writing by the city, and to move and authorize the mayor's signature.
I'll second.
So motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Loren?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarf?
Aye.
Commissioner Staff?
Aye.
Mayor Garris?
Aye. Is there any further things that we need regarding the power generating capacity with KMEA and the city?
I just want to thank everybody for KMEA for their work on this. It's been a tough process to get here in the financing, but we got it done and came in under what we expected, so we landed at a good time. Other than that, they've got a little bit of tear down to do. I don't know if we want to take a 2 or 3 minute recess so they can tear down, or
That's fine.
Yeah. I'll move that we recess for 5 minutes.
I'll second.
Ms. Loren?
thanks guys. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone online.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor for
Okay, yeah, perfect.
All those in favor for 5 minute recess, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's your mic. Oh, that's working.
Here, but it doesn't do my voice.
No. The NFL's got plenty of money. They're nonprofit. It's the members' money.
I agree. The NFL's got one.
It actually worked pretty slick having the teams meeting with the other coaches.
Chad not gonna be here, or is he hiding out in the hall?
He is sick.
Yes. He is sick. He was maybe going to send one sergeant, but I don't think he's going to make it. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
It's been 5 minutes, right? Somebody's been keeping track.
Go ahead and resume the open meeting. Move on to agenda item 11. Is receive and file department head report. Updates from department heads. Mr. Masters, looks like you're up first.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Mayor. This will be my last department head report for the city of Herington. I've turned in my resignation to city manager. Have some opportunities that will be good for my family, and I'm going to take those. There were 8 complaints and 95 inspections from July 3rd to today. I did 23 grass violations with 77 inspections, issued 25 cut orders with 27 yards mowed.
issued 14 permits with 8 inspections, did 8 electrical service inspections, and there is a Board of Construction Trades and Appeals meeting scheduled for September 26th at 4:30 here at City Hall.
September what?
September 26th at 4:30.
I want to chime in real quick and thank James for his time here and wish him luck in his next step, his next chapter. Any community that has him will be lucky to have him. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen, and he's established many things for us and many updates and a level of professionalism that I don't know if we saw here prior to his arrival. He's built strong relationships in his community with the contractors, and I know his legacy will last beyond this, but I want to wish him luck and thank him for his time here and everything he's done for the city of Herington. So it's not an easy job. It's one of the tougher jobs we have for this city. So thank you, James.
Thank you, Thatcher.
Good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Guess it was an easy one tonight.
What's that?
Guess it was an easy one tonight.
Yes.
By the way, James was kind enough to give us 30 days notice, so he'll be here till September 6th, helping us with that transition. So thank you.
Police Department, we will schedule for the next meeting, August 20th. So we'll move on to Chief.
Good evening. For the month of July, we ran 56 calls for service, 1 structure fire, 1 trash fire. We had a defined as an overpressure rupture, which was a AC unit on fire on the side of a house. 32 medical calls, 1 motor vehicle accident, standby, a couple gas leaks, control burns, 2 unauthorized burnings. So we dealt with those. No citations were issued. 10 controlled burns, permits issued, a couple smoke detectors, and then 1 weather response. Year to date, we have 380 calls. Year to date, 380 responses for the year. Training last month, we were out at the lake with Saline County Mounted Patrol, brought their boat over, and we did a joint training with them, working off their inflatable boat and our pontoon boat. It went really well. Working on that relationship. We'll probably do more training in the future once it gets cold for ice rescue. They're going to come over and do some of that stuff. We're still getting really good turnout for calls. Guys are showing up, but we're still looking for volunteers. We took in 1 junior firefighter application, and there's a firefighter moving to the area with both his kids are over 18 and firefighters, so we might gain 3 more. He doesn't have a date yet when he's moved down here, but he bought some property, so we should be gaining a couple experienced volunteers. Brush 3, that update is still ongoing. It should be going into paint on Thursday or Friday this week. All the parts are here. The interior is finished. Just got to bolt a couple things down, so it's progressing. The heat's been kind of killing some of the guys working at night on it. The shop's pretty hot at 7 o'clock at night, so it's kind of slowed our progress. But they're going to knock some out this weekend. Vehicle maintenance, it's an ongoing battle. We had another AC compressor go out. That was about $1,300 just for the compressor. We did a lot of the work putting it on ourselves to try and save some, and then a couple $100 to get the system charged and back down and everything. So the Explorer, it's still having intermittent rough starting issues. We've had it in, can't really figure out what it is. It's kind of when it sits for a couple days, so we'll keep trying to figure out what's going on with that truck. Demo Derby went well. We had 1 incident during the Derby. We also had a rollover accident with reported entrapment during the Derby. So we've been bringing in outside agencies to help with that event, so we were able to cover the event. They chose not to start until we got back, but that was their decision. We had plenty of staffing there to cover the event and handle the rollover at the same time. We also went to Hillsborough and Abilene's Derby. They came to us, so we go to them and return the favor, and staffed both those events and handled incidents in town while we had staffing away. So the storm that came through, the windstorm, we were out that night a little bit, kind of helping with the city, and then the next day, I think every department in the city helped street department get cleaned up. It didn't matter who you were. The police were picking up sticks and stuff. So that didn't generate any real calls for us. We just kind of went out and helped. So we were out for the storm response. That's all I got.
Are we putting on our website and Facebook that we're looking for volunteers still, or constantly looking for volunteers?
I haven't advertised it on Facebook. I've been doing the best I can with getting what we're doing on Facebook, and I'm trying to get better about that, and I could try and start adding in, hey, volunteers needed with some of that stuff. It's honestly something that I wind up forgetting until a week later. Hey, we had a big training. I need to get something out, or we had a fire. And fires, any calls, I usually try and wait 5 to 10 days after the incident to post something. But I like to keep that information out there. But I purposely delay any fires or calls we go to. Trainings I try and get out right away, but I can try and be better about posting the help needed.
Hey, Chief, what's the total number of volunteers?
On paper, 27. There's 2 or 3 that are probably going to be separating from us. They just haven't lost interest, haven't been coming around as much. So we'll probably we have a good solid core of 20 guys and gals. So.
Anything else, Chief?
Have you been doing all the maintenance on these vehicles?
Not solely. Previous years, we would do all the PMs, the oil changes, all that stuff ourselves. It got to be a little bit too much, and I don't have the time to do 14 vehicles, and McKenna doesn't have the experience to do oil changes on 14 vehicles herself on trucks. So this year, we left it up to the volunteers. We said, hey, if you guys want to come down on Saturdays and change fluids, we'll have a couple days. I'll buy lunch, and we can get the fluids knocked out, or we could pay somebody to come in and do it, and that's just less money we'll have to spend on equipment. They opted to, hey, let's just pay someone, get it done, have them done professionally, and we don't have to crawl around trucks for 2 or 3 days. So this year we had all of our PMs done professionally. We had a contractor come in. So we try and do as much as we can, like the AC compressor. We can unbolt it, have it back down, unbolt it, switch it out, so we save some labor. So we try and do what we can to cut those maintenance costs as much as we can. So a lot of the repairs, equipment mounting, like the brush truck refurb, if we sent that truck out, it'd probably be about $120,000 refurb to do what we're doing to that truck, and it's going to probably cost us $30,000 to $40,000 because of all the labor hours put into it ourselves. So we're doing what we can to save where we can.
Anything else? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Agenda item 12 is consider a purchase agreement for South F Street slot.
So Brad's had time to review these contracts if you got any questions for him, but we were approached with a private offer from Alan Patterson, who is also the owner of the Spot and Dining Car. And he has requested to buy an empty lot. I have it on the screen behind you and also a copy in your packet. It is on South F Street and between East McLaren and East Day. It's not a lot that it does have, I believe, a creek or small stream that runs through it. So it's probably not a highly sought after lot. And I don't know if he has a whole lot of purpose for it other than he just said, I want to make it an extra lot for my kids to play on, or pretty much was the extent of it. So he did offer $1,000 and agreed to cover the closing costs associated with the deal. I think it's a pretty reasonable offer. We just sold a decent lot on the west side for about half that. That's for about $550, I think, a few months back, and this is about double that size. So, I think $1,000 is a fair offer, but obviously it's up to the commission. They can make a counter. They can accept it as is. I would certainly recommend in favor of it. He would have, if he wanted to put a building on it, or he couldn't build a shop on it without going to the planning commission. If he wanted to build a residential home on it, he could. But he couldn't build an accessory structure without a primary structure. He couldn't really store anything on it since there's no primary structure. So he's pretty limited on what he can do. But again, I don't know if he plans to maybe develop it eventually. He didn't say with 100% certainty, but mainly he just said kind of an extra area for his kids to run around and hang out. So yeah, I informed him, hey, you can't really store anything on there. You're not going to be able to build a shop, and that was not really his intention at all. But
And that's my only question actually on any of the properties is, are they aware of the floodplain management regulations regarding?
yes, as far as I know, I think he's aware that it's in the floodplain. I can reinforce that with him.
I'm just saying I'd hate to.
When I talk to, I always encourage folks to do their own due diligence on the properties they're buying with their own realtors, but I think his house is not too far away and might be in the floodplain too. So, but I'll make sure he knows that if this is agreed upon.
Do we know any history on the property? How did we acquire it?
I have no idea.
It is part of the city's floodway management.
Oh, okay.
If you look at our flood zone, it literally you can't build anything on that unless you're going to follow whatever regulations that FEMA's going to require to get any amendments or whatnot.
And Brad, all that's covered in the contract.
I don't know if that's directly cited in the contract. Yeah. Okay.
Motion or consideration?
I'll make a motion for the purchase agreement of South Park Street lot to Patterson in the amount of $1,000 and
Authorized me.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Is there discussion? Just for other discussion, closing costs according to this agreement are paid by the buyer. Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yes, that's what we agreed to.
Any further discussion on the motion? Ms. Lawrence?
Commissioner Naylor? Aye. Commissioner Scarf?
Aye.
Commissioner Staff?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Next agenda items, consider a purchase agreement for is that actually supposed to be the 10 block of North 3rd Street to the Spot and Dining Car.
Okay. I can double check that. These are the legals I received from the county, so I don't. And the legal description was, I don't know if it was super clear cut. So I think the legal description references north half of Block 120. Does that sound right? So that was my mistake on the cover sheet. This has been in the works for a while. Currently, as you can see from the map, we allow the Spot, Mr. Patterson's business, to have a little shed back here. We've allowed him to have this rocked-in area and allow for additional parking. There's not a lot we can do with this lot, so we said, sure, we'll allow it. He wanted to basically put this in writing, so as staff members change, as commissioners change, he still has access to this parking lot, and he said, kill two birds with one stone and, take over this mowing for you on the overpass. So we are selling these parceled lots to him, and also included is this section here, which is, as far as Brad, we're free and clear to sell this. This is our property now. Nothing on this overpass belongs to the state anymore. So we'd agreed early on, I think when we first talked about this in 2023, over a year ago, it's kind of been kicked down the road a little bit, but we kind of agreed to do this for $1. I mean, it's a direct benefit to a local business. The land doesn't really have a lot of value. So I would certainly still recommend doing that for $1. Buyer will cover the closing fees associated with this, and should make it pretty painless for us.
Again, I looked on the state floodplain maps. That's floodway, which are more stringent than the A or the AE. I just want to make sure he's aware of that.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's. I don't know. I don't know what the legality is of the shed. I mean, I don't know if they haven't. Could be there in the floodplain, and they might not allow it to be there, but it's still there. I don't know anything about that. So, I mean, hypothetically, they could come in and say, you have to do this or do that.
I hate to reflect on the old days, but
Right.
when I did this, that had been prohibited.
Right.
I know I was here when they actually updated that building, and there was floodplain criteria that they had to adhere to build it.
Okay.
Has this been through the planning commission?
So we didn't take this through the planning commission because the best I can tell is it's not necessarily a zoning issue. The planning commissioners brought up the fact that they want to be made aware in the future of any lots we're selling. At the last meeting we had, I indicated to them if there's not a zoning issue associated with it, then we might not I probably wouldn't bring it before them. But now that we are on the verge of having a comprehensive plan, it's something that they might want to consider in the future. So I don't know what the legal side is, but if the city commission would want me to start taking land deals to the planning commission first, I don't know if they'd have any formal voting power other than to say, we're selling this residential lot, we want it to be commercial before it gets sold, then it would go to the planning commission.
Planning, if we have to widen that or to put in a turn lane.
Still really wouldn't be in my opinion, a planning and zoning issue. I get what you're saying, but it's commercially zoned, so there's not, as far as I know, there's not really anything that we're changing that would require the Board of Zoning Appeals to review this matter.
But if we wanted to put in a turn lane there, is there enough room?
Can I expand on that? Which way are you asking about turn lane?
Either way, if that is where the trailers get in across the street, or if we get so much business coming into town, we need access to the gas station, and that would be a really easy lane.
So there is some amount of easement in there that could potentially be used still. I don't suppose I've ever thought about that. It would require quite a bit of an extensive work to that overpass to get a turn lane in there on either side. But you are, I guess, taking somewhat of a gamble if that's your end goal.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is all still city where the roadway is correct at. It's the easement for the, so if you wanted to add a turn lane on 3rd Street, there's still technically plotted room. At least that's my understanding of how these maps are.
And if I can, you're looking at selling lots 1 through 11, and then the unspecified lots.
This is being sold too.
Okay.
It's not parceled, but it's not parceled out, but this section is being sold also.
This whole parcel as it is one parcel with the county right now. Can I click on it real quick?
Right.
Yeah. So it'll be that whole parcel that's in blue.
My only concern would be with what we have planned right north of that. The trail comes in right there, and then more access to the gas station. So those are things I think we should consider.
Anything else? We have a,
One more comment, if I may.
Yes.
I would be hesitant over the fact that the extension of that parcel that we're essentially, there's no city easement once you get past lot 11. I'm just saying, I guess I'm hypothetically thinking on the lines of what Cindy's saying, if anything ever comes up in the future, we no longer own that property.
With the overpass, you mean?
Well, all the way up to the overpass. I mean, that lot actually ends on the north side of the overpass. Correct?
So the original idea was that there would be, within the agreement, we would sell only these sections, so they're 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11.
Right.
That's all we would sell, and there would be, within the contract language, he would be responsible for mowing this entire area.
Yeah.
We could go back to an agreement like that, but he did bring up that he did request if he could just, potentially own the whole thing.
is he all right knowing that the city has the easement for the roadway and utility if needed?
My suggestion would be that we go back to the drawing board on this a little bit if we're not comfortable tonight, and table it potentially till the first meeting in September. It sounds like we've got some questions that I really don't have the answer to right now. I think if we needed to get in there bad enough, we could, but it gets to the point where, I don't know, if you got to do substantial construction work in 15 years, I don't know if him owning this could cause a headache for us. So, and without knowing who's going to own the spot in 10 years, it'll go with the building unless it's
And
sold
just
out.
the
There's no regulation on who we can sell it to after we sell it, so.
Like on the setback, can we make it go another 20 feet in?
So I think he's in over 20 feet on the setbacks here.
Mm-hmm. Is that a possibility?
25'5".
The length. So it'd give us more area for future development.
Yeah,
That's
I think you're
whole
limited
process
on
with
what you can
county.
develop here because of the floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's not like this is not a highly marketable lot for
Yeah.
development.
I don't want the whole property. I just want to make sure we have enough room to, if we need to widen that street, there is enough room.
Well, to do that, we'd still have to take some property anyway.
You'd have to almost split the lot. Split the lot out, or it wouldn't be very easy. I would say if that's the way we want to go, I would just forego it and sign a 10-year lease agreement with Mr. Patterson that says he can use this lot for free. I don't know if you can include some kind of language that says the city could.
Is he willing to go that route?
Yeah, he doesn't really care too much.
Yeah.
He just, like I said, his primary concern is, well, I wouldn't mind owning it and, saying it's mine and a part of my business. And then also, too, this is kind of a gentleman's agreement almost that was kind of in place before I got here, and it's been continued as far as the rock and the additional parking lot. None of that was ever in writing. So I can understand what he's saying of, I don't know who's going to be here in 2 or 3 years, and they might tell me, hey, get your stuff off my lot. Optimistic that wouldn't happen, but that's Mr. Patterson's main concern. That's kind of where this.
I wouldn't have a problem with a lease. Like I said, future use is what I'm concerned about.
Okay. Well, I think we can go back to the drawing board a little bit, and maybe if we would table this till September 3rd, that'd give us a little bit more time.
Or at least have some kind of language negotiated for city easements if needed.
Yeah, Alan's really flexible on this. I don't think he'll have any problems with that. So,
Personally, I'm all for selling the lot instead of doing a
I
lease.
am.
I just want to make sure that the city's going to be covered.
Exactly.
So I'll make a motion to table this to September 3rd, 2024.
Give it to Kenny.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion? Ms. Lance?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarf?
Aye.
Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Staff have any other questions regarding the desires from the commission?
We'll just go back and review the language and see what we can change, and I'll talk with Brad about it a little bit more. We hadn't had a chance to talk about it extensively, so.
All right, let's move on to item 14. Is consider a land swap agreement with the city of Herington and sellers. I'll leave this one up for Mr. Motti to explain.
There's obviously some issues with this house. I have a recently updated picture here. Been kind of wondering what we can do with it from a code standpoint. There's not really a lot, but I have been in touch with the property owner. We've kind of said in the past at least year since I've been here, and referenced even in parts of our comprehensive plan of cleaning up some of these lots, and it's a little bit of an imperfect process to say we want something demolished and to actually ever get there. And then the real challenging part is to be optimistic enough to think that we'll ever be reimbursed for that. So the 3 houses that we tore down last year, I'm not very optimistic that we'll ever be reimbursed from that. But we tore them down because we knew it was a benefit to the city. Really, my concern with this particular lot is more the intersection. And this is, other than our entrances at the highway, this is probably the most semi-traffic in town, other than down Broadway. And you can see kind of the edge of the road here where it's pretty bad, and it's been pretty bad for as long as we can really remember. Come on here to Google Earth. You can see where it kind of started back in May of 2014, and the lot did look a little bit better back then, but it's just gotten worse, and there's really no way to go in and widen this intersection without consuming some of this yard, and there's just really not much yard to give. The property buyer bought it through a family member, sight unseen. She is available by phone tonight. If you have any questions for her, I can call her. Bought it sight unseen, realized it was going to take a little bit more work than she could really undertake, and if you tore it down, you really couldn't rebuild on this lot very easily. So basically I approached her and said, hey, is there any scenario where you'd want to get rid of this thing? And she said, yeah, if you can find me a different lot in town that I might be able to develop on or just sit on until I'm ready to do something, I would consider it. And so that's when we found basically the only empty lot we have in town, which is over here on 3rd Street. As you can see, a tree went down the other day. It's since been removed. So I will... So here you can get a little better top view on it of really how narrow this intersection is. And we might not need to do anything there. We might not need to do anything for 5 years. We might not need to do anything for 10 years. But eventually we're going to need to do something. And if this place switches owners between now and then, the real risk is when you go in and say, hey, we need to take part of your yard, they're going to say, bust out your checkbook, because they know they've got the city over a barrel, so to speak. Part of my other concern for way down the road is we've considered doing some work on Walnut Street eventually down the road. It's one of the biggest ones we get complaints about. Best we can tell, this bridge is probably over 100 years old, and again is one of the most frequent areas for semi-travel. So just think these are really two key intersections that we're going to want to be looking at here in the next few years of fixing one up so we can work on the other, or vice versa. Sorry, went a little too far. So they're looking at buying, or we're looking at doing a even swap for this lot right here. To make things simpler, technically the city would be the buyer. We'd be buying the home and conveying this lot to the seller for the amount of $1. Since we approached her kind of with this scenario or headache or whatever you want to call it, I offered that we could cover the closing costs for her. She was hoping to get a little money out of the deal, and I pretty much told her that this is a pretty dead even swap. If anything, we're losing out because we know we're going to have to go in and tear the other structure down, but I think we can do it pretty affordably. And I guess the real gamble or benefit we're taking is that she says she wants to move to Herington potentially with her husband. And Brandy, you know her a little bit better. Brandy Sinsmeyer is representing the property owner tonight, but she does have interest in moving back to Herington, so this is kind of just the only scenario I could figure out to work without us having to go acquire another piece of land and swap it or do anything else. So that was kind of a long scenario, but I guess.
Can you zoom back out? Just leave it where it is, but zoom back out a little bit.
Like this?
Yeah.
But just for clarity,
Yeah.
I'll say it one
Yes.
more time. That's also floodplain.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and there's things that can be built on the floodplain, and there's
Yeah.
certain different
Well,
levels of
I
the.
can't remember if that's either A or AE, which they're lesser, but you
Right.
still have to conform. And
It's typically just like drainage or bringing a little dirt in.
I just don't want somebody to feel like we railroaded them or something.
It's in the floodplain, it's not in the floodway,
Okay.
but they would have to do a floodplain special floodplain
Right.
permit,
Engineer sign off on it.
survey done.
Yep.
Right.
It has to be floodplain approved construction.
Yeah.
Brandy, can you give us any information on the owners? Are they good with this? Is this what they want?
You want me to stand up?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so the owners, they're okay with this.
Yeah.
And if there was to be a structure built on that, it's not something where they would build it themselves. They would have a qualified construction company come out and build it. It's just one of those things, they bought that spot sight unseen. They can't tear it down because then the easement over goes and they can't really build anything there. But they do want to come down to Herington because of the health problems that her husband's having. They have to come out of the elevation in Colorado. So I'm not going to give a timeline of when they'll be here because he is in and out of the hospital right now. But they are looking at, okay, if they get this, what can they do? They've even looked at a couple of the owners by them if they could get a bigger lot and things like that. And from what she has shared with me on the house that she was going to build on that small lot, it's a small, like, 2-bedroom home just for her and her husband.
While they're not here, they have the ability to maintain the yard.
Hi, how you doing? My son is cutting their lawns.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess aside from just the benefit to the city of expanding that intersection, I mean, it's the first one you see in town.
Right.
I guess it's been somewhat of a personal goal of mine to see that thing come down, and this is just kind of the easy, painless way to make it happen. Whereas the other ones, as you remember, took us the better part of a year before a back and forth before we got to a tear down. So this is one that I want to make a candidate for trying to utilize our staff to tear it down ourselves and see if we can save a little bit money and do it in a feasible manner. And so I don't think it'll cost us a whole heck of a lot, and I think it'll give us a leg to stand on to clean up the rest of that corridor, which in my opinion is one of the worst areas in town from a code enforcement standpoint. So that would open up a line of sight for us, and make it a little bit better. And who knows, if we have that lot, there might be an opportunity to really widen out 5th Street and make that a little bit friendlier of an intersection for folks coming into town and tractor trailers. So
We'll have to work with also the state on that issue too.
yeah,
So-
yeah, there's a little C-clip money that we could redirect to potentially work on that intersection, but it's one of those things that it's kind of getting worse all the time. So yeah, so as far as I know, as long as Brad's all right with everything. Us, again, we're acting as the buyer, so we're essentially buying this house for $1, conveying the other property, the 3rd Street property, to the current owner of the home, and then we're going to cover the closing costs for her, which is kind of what she'd agreed to on the phone with me. So.
Yeah, I'm good. You make a motion?
I'll make a motion, for the land swap agreement with 318 South 5th Street in the amount of $1 and conveying 304 South 3rd Street to the sellers with the city, covering costs, closing costs with the mayor's signature.
Right, Peter. I'll second it.
It's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Lance?
Commissioner Naylor? Aye. Commissioner Scarr?
Aye.
Commissioner Stats?
Aye.
Mayor
Sorry.
Burns?
Aye. All right. At this time, I'm going to open up a public hearing regarding the Herington Tomorrow Comprehensive Plan. So if at this point there's anybody that wants to make comments regarding the Herington public, I need you to come forward. Please give your name and your address for the city clerk. And by all means.
Larry Mann, 319 Northeast Street. I'm all for this comprehensive plan. When I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, we were trying to get one done. The last one that was done was when I was on the commission back in 2000. So I hope we can keep this plan up to date and not have to go so many years without getting one. But Marcus and the Planning Commission has done a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcus, I see you're here from the Planning Commission. Do you have anything that you want to say to the commission?
It's been a long process, and I'm kind of glad it's over. So, or we hope it's over. So, yeah, it was great to have a consultant come in. So glad it was approved to have that person come in. That was a lot of help. I think it's a good project that we can come back to every year or two, and that's kind of been one of my things is, hey, if there's something we need to do, we can always come. We're supposed to review it every year, so I know things change over a 10 to 20 year period. So, but this is a good start. It has a lot of background information in it, and then I'd say the appendix is probably your strategic part of it. So. I just hope you pass it, so we move on.
Is there any other public comments is available? Anybody going once, going twice? Hearing no other, I'm going to close the public hearing. And we'll move on to agenda item 17 is consider an ordinance adopting the 2024 Herington Tomorrow Comprehensive Plan.
Well said. So moved.
I'll second.
So motion and a second discussion. I do have some things real quick. There are some, it's just general formatting and potentially general spelling issues.
Yeah, I saw a couple spelling issues.
I would recommend withdrawing your motion and adding the staff review.
You withdrew? Okay. And so moved. Yeah.
Any other discussion?
I just want to say it was a great idea We worked very, very hard on this over the last few years. A lot of headaches, and being able to use funds to actually hire someone who knew what they're doing, you can definitely see the difference, and it's going to help us a lot more grants.
And the comprehensive plan covers 10 years at the moment. So with an annual review from the planning commission and periodic from everybody else. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Ms. Lorenz?
So sorry. Commissioner Naylor? Aye. Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Commissioner Stapp?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. I'm going to make a motion that the commission authorize the mayor's signature on the ordinance just passed in next sequential order.
I'll second it. You stop staring at me, man.
Somebody's got to second it. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, Ms. Lorenz?
Commissioner Naylor? Aye. Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Commissioner Stapp?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for the planning commission, too. Move on to agenda item 18 is discussion on the current status of 2025 draft budget.
Alrighty, so we haven't really had a full crew here, unfortunately, this year to discuss the budget. We had, I think, one workshop and then didn't have a quorum for the second one. We've got new commissioner, Mr. Stats here, so I'll give you the cliff notes of what I've given part or all of the commission so far, and it's just things aren't getting much easier. We're going to have to exceed the revenue neutral rate just to operate this budget as it is. How much we want to accomplish is really going to come down, to be quite honest with you, to 5 mills. And I guess the point with the document I just handed you is 5 mills is quite a bit for the city. It's enough. It's, close to $60,000. It's enough to do a park project. It's enough to chip in for some streets. It's enough to do a number of things, save more money back in your reserve funds, whatever the case may be. And those mills on a direct level, I know it's tough. People are going to be in here next meeting complaining about their taxes, and I sympathize with them and I appreciate them. I wish folks would come in earlier on to have those discussions when we could try to make more of a mutual difference together. But unfortunately, folks don't come until, the last day you get to have a say about it, when really this community can have a say all year long about their budget process, and they can make requests or ask questions to city staff or commissioners all year long about where their money's going and why taxes are high. Our mill levy at a 85, 95 what we're proposing, or excuse me, 100 what we're proposing, it does look high. But I think if you look at other comparable communities, home values are a little bit lower here. So the average person is not really paying more than they would in necessarily Manhattan or Junction City or anywhere else. If you look at the Johnson County area or the Sedgwick County area, you're paying a lot more in taxes. Home values are higher. It's all perspective. But the long and the short of it is, we can squeeze this budget down another 5 mills if we say, I don't like the number. I don't like the number 100. I'd rather be at the number 95. My only point to this commission is 5 mills makes a lot of difference for the city, believe it or not. But for the average citizen, you're talking about a change of $2 to $10 a month. And you can use these calculations on your own home to see what it would cost for you individually. But really, I think, last year we were arguing over 2 or 3 mills. Which amounts to a few dollars. And I know every bit counts, but over the stretch of a year, it's not really affecting the average person that much. Given that doesn't include what the county charges and what the school district charges, but that's kind of just our piece of the pie. So, we have made a lot of cuts before we really dove into this thing, and I gave Megan our wish list. We were probably close to 120 mills. We've cut a lot. There's a list on the back end of this document that says everything, but we're sacrificing the uptick program. We're sacrificing quite a bit of our reserve transfers to the equipment reserve and CIP funds. We pretty much have eliminated the special projects fund. You really need to operate that through your CIP. And I know it's been brought up that this commission wants to see change, that this commission wants to see things being done in the community. You're not really going to be able to do that through a property tax, flat out. I mean, this is really to operate and to give yourself a little bit of extra cushion in there if you do have a pet project or whatever, something important like the comprehensive plan. That cost us $25,000. That's how much we transferred into the CIP last year. So unfortunately, we really didn't save any of that money back. The next step to me is, how do we fix this? I think the next immediate step is, now that our comprehensive plan is done, we develop a capital improvement plan. We find a firm. It won't cost near as much as the comprehensive plan did, but we find a firm to go in and build our CIP. And through community input, through input from the commission, through what we've already determined and identified in our strategic plan and our comprehensive plan, we're going to identify these projects we want to cover and build that into a CIP. I think where this community's fallen short in the past is to develop a great plan, a roadmap, and not to really add a funding mechanism to that. So the second part of that CIP discussion will be, okay, we've developed a nice CIP, we've put all of our wish lists, all of our major projects, on a list, and a timeline for when we want to achieve those, but how are we going to fund that? And I think you're going to have to take a long and hard look next year at a sales tax initiative to fund a CIP, or at least to fund part of the programs in that CIP. There's not a lot of cities rebuilding roads with just property tax. I'm sorry to tell you that might work in a community that's adding 50 or 100 new homes a year. We're hoping to add a few new homes in the next year or two, but the benefit to the larger communities with positive growth is they can really keep their mill levy stable, and they're capturing new growth every single year. So you can, in a growing community like a Wamego or outside of Manhattan, you're relying on those new homes being built and capturing the new growth on those homes. So unfortunately, it's kind of an imperfect scenario, but I don't think you're going to be able to trim much fat beyond what we've done already. We can go down there and squeeze it down to 98 or 97 or 95. I'll tell you, anything below 95, you're going to be approaching a budget issues, like we've dealt with the auditors this year already. And you're going to be having, if you have revenue shortfalls and you don't have enough reserve money and employee benefit or wherever else, stormwater fund, like we saw this year, you're going to have to make a transfer that you didn't plan on, which this time around amounted $200,000. But it was because of problems dating back 4 or 5 years. I still think we've accomplished in this budget. We've corrected some of those issues, but we don't want to go in and slash what we're putting into employee benefit or anything else. We want to look at some alternatives in the next year to figure out, can we make the cost of health insurance cheaper? Is the staff willing to pay a little bit more? But that's not an overnight conversation, and that's not something that's going to do us, much good for the sake of getting this budget passed. But we're going to have to take a harder look at some of those things next year and say, are we willing to sacrifice on our health insurance, or are we willing to sacrifice on the frequency of pay raises or promotions? There's a lot that goes into it, but I will say thanks to Megan for doing this. It's kind of an imperfect process even at this point, because literally daily she's still getting updates on numbers from the auditor. So you guys see a lot of the side of the budget. You don't see as much of the revenue side. So she's daily plugging numbers into this budget that have to do with our revenue from 2023. And sometimes that kicks the number up, and sometimes it takes it back down. And we've been lucky on a few things and not so lucky on a few others. So this is pretty much where we're at. I'm happy to answer any questions on the budget, but I wanted to have a discussion tonight because I think it's important that, you know, as a commission and as a staff, we stand firm and stand together and say whatever we decide on the 20th is not going to be easy, but, you know, I would not recommend going into the public hearing on the 20th and buckling under pressure for a few mills, which I'll be honest is what happened in the budget season last year. And, you know, I think this is all of our problem. I think we should approach this with a united front. And so if the consensus tonight is get this thing down as much as you can, that's fine, that's fair, but give us a realistic number to say, you know, what can we do? What's possible? So I can tell you at 95, it'll be trim, and there won't be much extra to chip in for anything on the trail or do any upgrades at the park or cover any unknown expenses for the lake disc golf course or do many improvements at the lake, period. You'll be running on razor thin margins. So I think with the instability of the economy coming into the next year, we may really have to say next year we can't raise much. So I think we should put ourselves in the best position possible with this budget. So I've rambled enough. I'll answer any questions or comments.
So I posed a question yesterday to the city manager and asked that he could speak with staff regarding what happens when a department does not utilize their entire authorized budget. How does that equate back to the general fund, or is it earmarked for those departments, or do we reappropriate it back to those departments? Can you kind of explain some of that process?
So for the most part, it goes back into the pool of money that the city has to work with for the next year. So if a specific department comes in under budget, that money is available to be used in the next year's budget. So there are scenarios where we can earmark it, per se, to go back into that specific department's budget. But that's something that we kind of have to track on the side, saying our specific departments have capital outlay funds, and let's say they put $5,000 in that line item and they don't spend it. So when they come and do their budget request with us, they will say, we had $5,000 in our capital outlay line item last year that we didn't spend. This year, we are asking for $10,000, and they can build it that way.
Okay, but as far as
That was a kind of simplified version, but
in a more complex one, as far as like personnel salary services, if they're not all used, does that just get added to the budget authority that we're approving in this budget, or is it already included?
okay, is it what?
Is it being added towards additional what's in this budget, or is it already included in the amounts that are in this budget?
So anything, okay, so.
I guess is the easier, the longer, more complicated question.
So in your budget, you have your three columns. You have your 2023 column, your final numbers of what you spent in 2023. You have your projected numbers of what you, or your budget authority, or your projected numbers of what you think you're going to spend in 2024, and then you have your numbers for 2025. So if for some reason, let's say we were short 2 staff members the whole year, and we, we're doing this now, and we know we're not going to hire somebody, and we have that money in a salary line item, that goes back into like the pool of money that we use to fund the 2025 budget. But you can adjust that number in the 2024 column. You can adjust those numbers in that column as you're working on the 2025 budget.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
For the most part.
I mean, if you think about it like this, like if you have a personal budget that you write for yourself in 2023, you set that personal budget, and at the end of the year, if you haven't spent that entire budget, it all goes back into the same pool of money for the next year, and then you rebudget that money. The only savings you have in the case of us are really the equipment reserve fund and the capital improvement fund. That's like what would be your personal savings account, where you can access and spend that extra money whenever you want. In the case of us, we don't have much money in those accounts because for whatever, we haven't put enough in our savings. So that's really what I've advocated for in the last year, and even like when we had our strategic planning workshop that was strongly recommended, close to 30% of your budget should be in those reserve funds, and we're not really that close to there. But so that, I don't know if that helps at all, but that's kind of the way I look at it. Essentially, we can't spend anything without rebudgeting all that money. But the capital improvement, equipment reserve, keep those healthy, you can spend that money whenever you need it.
But the rest of that goes into the carryover, which is actually disseminated into the general budget, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. And not every department affects the mill levy. So like the utility departments don't really have much of an effect on the mill levy.
They have no effect.
No effect on the mill levy. So it's, it's mainly just police, fire, street,
So your whole
lake.
general fund affects the mill levy, which covers police, fire, street, like Sasha was saying. Your employee benefit is going to affect your mill levy. If we were to tax money for the equipment reserve or the capital improvement plan, that would affect your mill levy. However, we don't tax directly into those funds. We capture it in the general fund and make transfers into those reserve funds. And then your library affects your mill levy. Bond and interest will affect your mill levy, but that's it. So our water, sewer, electric, trash, anything like that, those have no impact on the mill levy unless we're talking about making transfers out of those funds.
So with the trimming we've done, I mean, at this point, if you came back to us and said, 100's too high, get us down to 98, get us down to 95, that is going to come, those cuts are going to come from the equipment reserve fund and the capital improvement fund. So that's pretty much the only two places left we have to go and feel good about it without really strapping a department down. And honestly, it's, again, you're only talking about 5 mills. So I know we were comfortable with going up to 100 last time we spoke. Some commissioners even said they'd be comfortable at 105. So we can get, we can get anywhere between 95 and 100, but just know that's where your major sacrifice is going to come from. And if something pops up in a year and you need to pull $25,000 out of the equipment reserve to buy a rescue truck, like we did not too long ago. Sorry. Or you need to dip into the capital improvement fund to pay for a comprehensive plan that you weren't planning on paying for. It's not going to be as easy. So
Before we move on, I do want to say I'm sitting here looking at the cutbacks. I really appreciate you guys working to make these cuts. I know there's some deep cuts there that can probably really be used in our city, but again, as the elected body, it's our job to make sure that every dollar is spent for the benefit of all the people in the community. And so I feel like I'm a newcomer to this, so.
Actually, I was going to bring that up a little bit because you weren't available to be at our previous budget workshop.
fine,
We
yeah.
didn't have others we didn't have quorum at the last budget workshop. We currently have a public hearing scheduled for the 20th, but I'm curious on two questions here for every member of the commission. One, what do you think is the highest number you're willing to go? And the second question is, could we have a budget workshop before the 20th? So that we all could look at it one more time, because we didn't have the opportunity either to go in and make specific cuts that we wanted or we would recommend and see where that moved it. Do we want to do that? So that's my two questions I'm posing to all three of you. So whoever wants to go first.
No more than 100.
Okay.
I mean, I would hope that we could have a special meeting.
Budget workshop.
And I'd want it at 80.
Okay.
At what?
80.
So the revenue neutral rate is 85. You're going to capture 85 no matter what. Right.
Unless he wants to lower it.
Yeah. I don't. Can you lower it?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're past the time.
I mean, at this point, like, we could.
I think you're past the time where you can go below the R&R though, right?
Mm-mm.
Well, I don't know.
My understanding that with the R&R, you can always go lower than the 100 mils that you're having a public meeting of. So it doesn't matter how much lower you go, you can always go lower.
But I guess where he's coming from is that if you do not exceed your R&R, there's a completely different timeline for when your budget needs to be submitted, and I think we're outside of that window.
We're outside of the
So I don't
publication
know.
window.
I just don't know how it would be received if we said we were going to exceed and then went in under. Would that bind us to those other that other timeline? I just don't know. I just don't know.
So
I get
Fair
what he's
question.
saying. I'd
Yeah.
love it to be that low too. I'm just letting you know that either way, no matter what we do, if we don't do anything, if we don't have an agreement on the 20th, we'll capture 85.
well, we've got a little past the 20th. We don't have to do it on the 20th.
Right, right.
Because the last day we have to approve the budget is September.
Yeah, but you get real
Something.
wonky because we got to publish it in advance, and yeah.
Right.
So, but
I'm fine with having if you and I'll let you guys get to it. But if you want to have another budget workshop, that's fine. My only thing is, don't come in on the 20th and say, I've never seen anything in front of me before. This budget's so out of whack, and I'm not pointing at anyone in the room here, but these are issues we've dealt with in the past. And it was a split vote last year. I don't think that's a good way of doing things. I think we should be able to come to a compromise and pass this budget on a unanimous vote. That's my 2 cents personally. Doesn't always work out that way, but I think we should try everything in our power. So if you want to do that, we can. I don't know much. I don't think we'd need much more than an hour to run through everything. And
yeah.
I'd hope that the commission would focus on what they want to achieve in the next budget year rather than, again, going line by line through every single thing. We're here to get you what you want to achieve, and we'll work the numbers on the back end to make sure it fits into a comfortable rate that you're willing to pay and you're willing to have your neighbors pay. So we can meet for an hour next week. I'd say we shoot for an evening.
Let's see what our other commissioners think. Commissioner Naylor, 2 questions. Would you want a budget workshop, and what is the highest number you're willing to go up?
I'm fine with the budget workshop. 100 is what I'm going for. I have like 5 quick questions on these budget cuts, but we can deal with those tonight, or we can deal with them at the budget meeting.
Go ahead.
Okay, we're on the 20,000 from the fire department. Is that delaying the fire truck? Is that what that 20,000 is?
That would have been for his additional vehicle.
So you kept you kept.
That additional, there's $40,000 for a replacement vehicle that I had budgeted, and that would be to start the replacement plan for the SUVs, the Explorer that has 177,000 miles on it, and then to replace the Tahoe that is now being used regularly because of our call volume next year. So it would be with a used vehicle this year and one next year to get those cycled out, because we're
So you kept the 54 in major equipment, but this, because we moved it, so then.
yeah. So we had capital to carry over.
Yes.
Yep.
So that would, yes.
So
So
cut,
it would
20,000 was cut from the vehicle. And
So does that mean a used vehicle, or does that put it off for another year?
that would put a used vehicle off for another year. We were looking at a used highway patrol vehicle, fully upfitted, for anywhere from 29 to say 37,000. 35,000 was the last number. They expected next year's to be a little bit higher on a newer model. New vehicle was 67,000 for a completely new upfitted vehicle. So
Okay,
we were going for a used one.
yeah, I was just making sure that's where that money was
That's where
coming
that would come from. So that movie was moved to capital outlay, that 20,000,
Mhm.
and then that would be able to carry over till next year, and we would push that vehicle back a year and then have enough to do that, and then continue down that road.
Okay. And then the cuts for the sidewalk program and ADA cuts. We got that grant for the straight blocks for streets, or are we still waiting on the grant?
We have not received that yet, and that would just be kind of a single stretch down from the pool to the school.
So this sidewalk, this money is what we utilize for people that apply for our sidewalk program for
Okay,
like the
that
concrete.
program.
So the
Okay.
city, so requests that we had started out with at this budget season were to have $10,000 for each of those line items. And we took the sidewalk down to 5 and the ADA cuts down to 5.
Okay. Community building, I hate to see those cuts in there. There's
So I agree, but there is still enough. There's still, that didn't cut everything. That
Okay.
that took out, and I'm sorry, I should have probably put some more information on here as to like what was still included. But that did not take them down to 0. That just took off a little bit of what they had requested.
Okay.
Yeah, like Homestead was at 15,000 total, I think, and we took them down to 12.
Right, which we talked about it. We thought, they could probably still get that, the renovation that they were wanting to do, the clubhouse, just have to do it a little bit more
Okay.
frugally.
Okay. And then the uptick, as long as we're bringing it back next year, we're cutting it out this year, or?
I
think we'll have to go year by year,
I don't think you really have the money for it, and I don't think you have the money for it. I think you should restructure the program entirely, to be honest with you, to say, what the burden of proof should be, or a smaller grant, or a grant for new business only. We're in a cycle, we're in a loop now where people that have already gotten an uptick grant 2 or 3 years ago are now getting another one because we said they would still be available. So, I think as we get into the Main Street program, we're looking at applying for that, and I think there should be real incentive for new business growth. I think we've done a lot for our local businesses. We've spent over $50,000 on our local businesses in the past 5 years. Run it through the run it through the CIP. Do it as needed, but don't guarantee that you're going to spend $25,000, because there will be people lined up at the door to get their $5,000 every year. Not saying that nobody needs it, because every business could always use $5,000, but it's a balance between what we can afford to do, and
I would disagree with you. I think we need to keep the businesses we have. We need to show them that we still support them in some way, even if it's a little here or there to make it look better for our town. I'm fine with cutting the program for next year, but next year we need to budget something for the uptick. We can remodify the conditions, and who can get it and how much is fine with me, but I hate to cut the whole program.
I think you could do it next year, but I would run it through your capital improvement. That's how I would. To me, it's not really a necessity. It's not a necessity that can be paid for from the budget, because it's essentially $2 million. I mean, that we really don't have when we're looking at all these other cuts. So I love the program. I'm happy to to keep it going, find a different way. But again, I think some of these things, special programs, special projects, need to be run through your capital improvement plan.
And then anything extra I would put into the capital improvement plan to get us up to 99.9. Okay, because we need the capital improvement plan to do what we want to do with the city.
Okay.
That's it.
Anything else? Mr. Stats? Do you want to have a workshop?
I'd be in favor of a workshop, however, that's 7 meetings next week.
Personally, for your benefit, I would like to have another workshop just so that you can ask other questions or if we can do something. So, and as far as my answer to my second question, 95 would probably have to be the highest, but I would love to be closer to 90. There's a lot of cuts that would have to be made, and I know it's not potentially possible, but that's my answer to the question. So it sounds like we would like to have a budget workshop in the next 2 weeks before the next meeting. So I guess we need to see if we need to plan that budget workshop between the four of us, and we'll just have to inform Commissioner Bell that we're having another one. So what day works best for everybody in the next 2 weeks?
Not the 23rd.
Not the what?
23rd.
Oh, we'd like to have it, I think, before the.
Yeah, it would have to be next week.
It would have to be before the 20th. And I will tell you, I'm going to be out of town starting this Sunday through Thursday. So Monday through Thursday of next week is not an option.
I can't do, well, I'm not, with that said, Tuesday's court, so I can't do Tuesday. But other than that, so you're saying Friday or Monday?
That would be my recommendation, but I don't have to be there for the next budget workshop. I've been the last two.
As long as
It'd be
it's
for
after
the
4.
more for the benefit of the other commissioners.
Yeah, I don't get home until 5:15, so.
And let's tell her.
Is there a school board meeting on Monday?
Probably.
Brad, I don't think you would have to be there. Unless you want to make, some proposals for the
Yes.
legal department.
Monday's out.
So there'd be a meeting in here Monday evening. We could do Tuesday evening.
Or we can do Monday evening in the community building.
I don't know if the community building's reserved. I wouldn't think so, but I don't know.
Sorry, Megan.
The 12th or the 19th.
That would be the 19th is what I would be. I can't do between the 11th and 15th. I'm out of state,
Okay.
So the 19th or?
potentially.
Tentatively.
Oh,
Okay.
is that good? Monday the 19th.
In the evening? To make an evening meeting?
Community building is open.
So we could schedule it for, we
Oh, I
don't
think
normally get back until
The night,
5:30.
is there a
right?
school board meeting on the 19th?
Here,
I could drive and
Yes.
be
On the
here
19th?
by,
it's the third
5.
Tuesday.
I thought you said the 12th.
No. You
The-
asked me if
the-
it was
the
on the
third-
19th.
Oh, okay, my
The
bad.
third Monday would be the 19th. So you're back about 5:15.
I'm good after 4.
You're good after 4. What time are you good for an evening meeting?
I'll schedule it.
Okay. I can be back at 5:30. Do we want to
Say
just
6.
do 6? Or would staff prefer
Oh, what
Well,
day
sir.
are we on the 19th?
19th?
It doesn't matter. And just a side note, we could probably even just have it in the municipal courtroom.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, yeah.
19th.
19th at 6. Do we want to schedule that? Can we also make sure that Commissioner Bell is aware we're going to have a
Yeah.
workshop? I'll give commissioners, hopefully you'll come in if you have wants and desires to see how the budget would change. Please have those prepared so so we have at least a productive workshop. So, is there anything else regarding the discussion on the budget? You told me 10 minutes. Are we sticking with 10 minutes for an executive session?
Yeah, that's all I've got. Probably for tonight, so it's going to be a quick meeting.
Okay. I move that the Herington City Commission recess into executive session pursuant to the personal matters of non-elected personnel exception KSA 75-4319B1 in order to discuss personnel matters to include the following: the governing body, the city manager, the city attorney. The open meeting to resume the commission chambers at 8:05 p.m.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Ms. Lorenz? Aye. We'll be in recess. Open session review, no action. We'll resume. No action was taken. City manager comments.
So we recently put out 3 leases for the airport, hay leases, ground leases out. Those are on the website. They'll be going in the paper in the next few weeks, and we'll be distributing copies around town. We'll have a bid opening for that on September 3rd at 10 o'clock a.m. So encourage members of the public to submit your bids. So staff are starting on a downtown pocket park project, certain amenities down there in partnership with the VFW, CVB, AARP, who's sponsor of the grant, and the Dickinson County Community Foundation. Have all partnered together on this. It kind of came together on short notice. They transferred some grant funds from what was supposed to be a walkability study, and we just found out this was more a feasible project, so we're going to be chipping in and helping out and developing the pocket park right over here for use. So hope to see some movement down there in the next few weeks. Disc golf course at the lake. There's supposed to be a closing happening soon on the land expansion, so we plan on bringing that back for a discussion at the September 3rd meeting. Having Dennis in attendance there and figuring out how we want to move forward with that project. So kind of an outstanding item that I've talked with a few people about is the Cross Mechanical land sale. It has been complete. They do have a deed in hand. The only thing that they're waiting on is essentially the county to finalize the lot split from the other 2 city-owned lots, and just to figure out the taxes, which should be done this fall at some point, but I've instructed them that they can go ahead and start moving dirt if they want to. As far as a building permit or anything, they wouldn't be able to go that far without going to the Planning Commission first. Probably some of this being finalized, but to my knowledge, they're just talking about potentially starting to bring some extra dirt in as it becomes available. So that's all I have for tonight.
All right. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Scarf?
No comment.
Commissioner Naylor?
Remind everyone, kids are going back to school, buses, bikes, walkers. We want to make sure kids are safe.
Anything else? Commissioner Stats?
I don't have any comments other than thank you for letting me attend my first commission meeting. It's quite long.
Some of
No
them,
worries though, it's good.
Some of them are long, some of them are not.
I remember.
So I asked Thatcher yesterday about a timeline regarding the Father Padilla project around the pond with the riprap. Do you have an answer?
I don't have a great answer on that. I'm having a couple departments coordinate on that and hoping to speed the process up a little bit. I think our distribution department has a little bit extra time recently, and not too many major projects, knock on wood, so we're going to try to make some progress on that, and it's my intention to have it done this year.
Okay. If we can get a little bit more definitive timeline as you guys get, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
The other thing is mowing out near the campers closer to the banks. We've mentioned it a few times. Can we push them a little closer?
Yeah, they were out there weed eating today, closer to the edge. We've instructed them to, at least in the certain areas, to get closer to the edge. You know, it's just a fine line with the mower of not getting too close and running it in, but we're working on it, and we're trying to do as much as possible. But our employees were out there with the weed eaters today on the east edge there, so the old lake.
Appreciate that. So just a reminder to the commission, we've got now a budget workshop, August 19th at 6 o'clock. Please have questions, comments for the budget ready so we can be productive. Nothing else? Anything else for the good of the city? I'll second it. Mr. Lance? No. It's a no, it's a no. I move to adjourn. Ms. Lorenz?
Okay, Commissioner Stark? Commissioner Naylor? Commissioner Stark? No. Commissioner Stats? Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.